Hi everyone, today I want to talk about what can be the blockages on your mission work and how your masculine is also going to mirror it on his healing journey. So, um, earlier last week, I put out a video on a specific social media platform and it completely flopped. I mean, I have a kind of average on that social media platform, but it didn't even reach anywhere near to that average. It was so bad, and I wasn't really triggered when it happened because I thought, okay, my content, the topic probably it's not what people are looking for in the twin flame community right now. So, and I'm okay with that because I am kind of aware that what I'm sharing, the content that I'm sharing on my twin flame journey is not necessarily the most popular or more common of what most twin flame are going through on their journey. So everybody's journey is different, but some are more fitting into a collective kind of idea of what their journey is, and mine is a bit more standing out on the side. So I was okay with that because I already made my peace with that. And but then my sister called and she had put a video on the same day on the same social platform, and her video just exploded, had a massive response. And so when she shared that, I knew there was something for me because, as I have explained before, I have a specific agreement with my sister to wanting to learn by comparison, where on a soul level she chose to be working of letting go of attachment, of having validations, because she's more fitting in the ways of human expectations. And I chose on a soul level to work with the rejections, so finding myself working through rejections of having not the validation to fit in the human ways, right? So that is a specific dynamic, and it's not like that with everyone. You can have this dynamic with just a specific person in your life, and you can have it reversed with someone else in your life. There is a friend or another sibling where you are the one fitting in and the other one isn't, right? So it will depend on what your agreement is on a soul level. So in this situation, because we both aware of this agreement that we have, so by comparison, I knew there was something for me when she shared this information. And because she's also a twin flame coach, she's on a twin flame journey, she's also a hypnotherapist, and we started sharing on social media platforms approximately at the same time. So the first thought that came when she shared this information, I thought, okay, we are aware that our contents are different. Her content is more matching of what the twin flame community is looking for, but I am okay with that. But still, it's a bit unfair that because mine is slightly different, that it doesn't have as much response. So there must be a limiting belief behind, because otherwise this wouldn't happen. A limiting belief that I am not aware that is activated within me. So the limiting belief that is behind this was to show me that I still believed that being different or having a difference or feeling different is a handicap. So you're not starting with the same attributes to get to the same place, or at least or even to go further than the other person. So it's like you're not starting equal, right? And on a everyday way that I'm interacting with the external world, I don't think that I have it at all, because I have come to understand that everybody is different. We all have differences, and it's only a matter of perspective, right? And so I don't see one that is less advantageous than the other. But if this is happening in my life, it's I must have this limiting belief somewhere where I am still seeing it as an inequality, right? So I'm trying to understand where it's coming from where I feel it's still activated within me, from which wound, right? So it's the wound of injustice, of course, but where do I feel still that is not completely healed? And it's because of the pain or the experience of this soul plan, meaning that, as I explained, that my sister and me, we chose on a soul level to want to experience more fitting in or not fitting in with a specific dynamic. So even if you're going to have a different dynamic with different people, you're going to be able to see that you have a more dominant way that you wanted to learn in this incarnation. And my more dominant way to learn in this incarnation was by contrast. Okay, so it's something that I'm going to be experiencing more than fitting in. So and I know on a soul level that it is exactly the same and it has the same value, but somehow on a human level I feel that the experience that I chose is more difficult. It's felt more difficult, more challenging, right? More painful, therefore. And in my head, in my consciousness, I know it isn't, but that's the way I feel still inside. Even if I accepted it and I am not being victimized by it, but I still feel it. That is more difficult. And to me, it doesn't feel like it's coming from a limiting belief, because it's so embedded in our collective. Because we see this inequality everywhere, in a way that we're going to see, well, someone born with money is going to be much easier than somebody born poor. When somebody has physical attributes and is considered attractive to the human ways, then he's obviously going to have an easier life than someone that doesn't have these attributes, that what we consider beautiful and beauty and aesthetic and smart and successful and all of it. So even though we know there is no difference on a soul level, especially when you start your spiritual work, you can't help feeling it when you're interacting with your external world, because it's so embedded in the human ways. And also the world, the 3D world of this planet is designed that way on the surface. Now, of course, at the core, it's not necessarily that, but that's what we're interacting with in our everyday life. So because it's so common to think that way, and to believe that one is always more difficult than the other, there is always a minus and a plus, there is this duality and this separation and this contrast constantly, then it's really hard to spot when you are also functioning with that, and there is a limiting belief still within you, which is obviously everyone that is interacting like that with the external world, which is most of us, except a few who have managed to break free from the matrix. We are still interacting, and even when you are doing the healing journey, you have healed a lot, but still there are bits and pieces where you are interacting with the external world in that way. And so it was very difficult for me to spot it, unless this thing didn't happen with my sister. So I'm very grateful for that. And to understand that I still had a judgment of value of something that was difficult, or something that was less difficult or easier, depending on the circumstances, right? So I was giving power to the circumstances, external circumstances, to know the value of something, right? And it's coming from also the imprinting of, if you have chosen on a soul level way of learning by contrast, like me, more predominantly, doesn't mean it's the only way that you are going to be learning, but more dominant on your soul plan, then in your childhood, you would have had the person that is looking after you, or the parent, who was the representation of what the external world is to you, right? They are basically the embodiment of the external world to you as a child. And because they would have worked through the rejections of what they felt it was different within you and you are not fitting in. But then you would have had another parent or some other members in the family where they would have taught you to embrace this difference. So to see it as a uniqueness, as some extravagant, is interesting, and to really embrace what the others were rejecting, obviously, so you could develop enough self-love, self-worth to a certain point, right? But in this learning process, you would have also learned to reject what was rejecting you, meaning that anything that was like other people they were fitting in, then you would have rejected that. You would have qualified as common, as generic, as boring, as doing like everybody else, and so you would have moved to the other extreme polarity, which is then becoming a rebel. Usually you're the rebel of the family, because they rejected you for being different. Then okay, I'm gonna go all the way out to be so different, and so then you overly develop your uniqueness, right? And you define yourself through that, and you make a mission in your life to be different, right? So obviously both ways is an extreme rejection and attachment to same aspect. And as long as it's not healed, you are going to be tapping into those extremes, right? And so throughout your whole twin flame journey, you are going tapping into that wound constantly to be healing all the aspects all the time. And right now, what I'm sharing is active in the way I am relating to my mission work, right? And so so if I feel that I'm starting, so the limiting belief that I have, because it's coming from the wound of the pain, having suffered, to have experienced a soul plan of way of learning to be, by contrast, therefore it felt more difficult. And so that is the pain that I am still hanging on to. Therefore, I still have the belief that having a difference, or feeling different, or being different is a handicap, right? So if I have that belief when I'm creating my videos, and I'm not thinking like that, obviously, when I'm making my videos, as I said, I think, being different is great, and is, and is completely fine, and I have totally accepted that is my journey. But the limiting belief is the energy that is carried with my videos when I'm putting them out there. So it is received also. They're saying, well, it's going to be responded this way, meaning that, well, you are not like everyone else, so we are not going to validate you in the same way. So that is the response energetically. So now to obviously transmute is to know a difference. It's not an handicap, and I can only feel that it's not a handicap because now I have let go of thinking and believing and feeling that my experience as wanting to learn by contrast was a more painful experience. And also then I can relate to the external world that anyone that has chosen a different kind of plan, or a plan where they're learning by contrast, it isn't more difficult, right? Which I wasn't able to do with everything that I was interacting with. Every time I saw a difference, I have to adjust. I was either going to the negative judgment of value or the positive judgment of value. So now with this healing and this transmutation, every time I interact with something that I feel that it might be a different choice or different soul path, then I'm looking and I'm catching myself if I'm going into the negative judgment of value or the positive judgment of value, and instead to just see it as a experience, and it's a different kind of experience, but it has no judgment value attached to it, either negative or positive. So my masculine is also working on that, on his twin flame healing, because right now he's also transmitting that belief because he has a physical attributes that could be considered as different in this human world, and he has chosen specifically those as physical attributes because he is working on this limiting belief from our last incarnation, where he actually had a physical handicap. He was in a wheelchair, and now bringing back this limiting belief to be able to transmute it in this lifetime is to believe that being different or having a difference is a handicap, right? So, and he's working on that. He's been working on that as he's been also working with this specific karmic that he's been with since it's the same karmic from the last incarnation too. So that is the way that is one aspect. And then another aspect again, and then came up that goes with everything, is that simultaneously that this was happening with my sister, I kept having feeds of twin flame coaches and twin flame guides that I don't follow, but they kept coming on my feed, and when I listened to them for a few minutes, I realized they really didn't resonate with them, and because I didn't think they were bringing anything insightful, they were not giving proper tools to advance on your journey. I felt they were really actually keeping you stuck in the same muddy, gooey place that most twin flames want. They only want to hear this side of, that it's not your fault, that it's all on the masculine's fault, and all of that, which, yes, I get it, sometimes you need to hear it and you want to hear that, but it's just keeping you stuck in the same loop of repeating the same patterns, right? That's the way I experienced, right? So, but they were very successful. So I thought, okay, my tool is maybe not the best in the world, but I know it works, and it has proven over time with my clients and working on me that I have real answers, real concrete ways of moving forward on my journey thanks to the healing modality. So, okay, if it's not the best, at least has to do as well as these guys' healing modalities, right? Or whatever they are using. So it's not fair, again, the injustice wound. And so what was the pain that I was relating that was connected to this wound in this specific situation now? So the pain was that when I got into my twin flame journey, at the beginning of my twin flame journey, obviously I got completely blind, everybody does. You have no roadmap, you have no guidebooks, you have nothing. You just go in and it's a twin flame connection, that's all you know. And it's very suffering, and it's so painful, the process of going through the journey and working out things, and these basically guides or coaches, this type, were a representation of that pain that I went through, the not knowing, the confusion, the feeling lost and feeling misguided and misled, and obviously all necessary because it's part of your journey, but that's the attachment to the pain that I have, and they are representation of that, which is, in other words, the twin flame journey is also the representation of what a soul goes through. So the pain of that journey is also the pain of what a soul goes through when they awaken, once they are experiencing an incarnation, and it was the plan to awaken in that incarnation, right? So this darkness, this coma that we feel in all the other timelines or incarnations that we've had without awakening, that pain is represented in these early stages of my twin flame journey, where I felt the same, where it was all in the dark and no one told me how to do it, what to do. I felt like I didn't have a choice, so how am I supposed to do better? How am I supposed not to act on these limiting beliefs? So it felt really unfair and unjust, right? And so it is really a representation of what it is to go through a human experience without awakening, and just being trapped in these cycles of repeating the same the same patterns and suffer through them again and again and again. And so then what is the limiting belief that is attached to this wound of injustice, and that I felt that it was unfair, that we were not given the guidebooks and the roadmap to work it out sooner, Well, it's the wound, it's the limiting belief that we must suffer to learn. So it is a massive core limiting belief that most humans still abide by. That's why we also have so many incarnations as a collective, where it feels so difficult, right? Which was exactly what I was explaining about me choosing a plan where I wanted to learn by contrast. So, and we experience it as being more painful. And if we are choosing incarnations where is a lot of challenges, and we experience them as more suffering than it needs to, is because we have the limiting belief at the core level, even on our soul level, that we must suffer to learn. And because as a soul, you obviously you have a body and you have an experience of a human experience, but when you leave this body, when you die and you go back to your spiritual realm, spirit realms, you still take the imprint of that incarnation, right? And so some of the core beliefs stays with you, and that's the way your soul expands. It's about this whole process. And when you have still this limiting belief that you keep bringing back on the soul level, where you must suffer to learn, then you are going also to keep choosing incarnations where you think you need to rebalance everything that you think you have felt, because it's only a perception that you felt, that you have felt, and so the guilt, the shame, and all of that you need to rebalance. So you go back to an incarnation again, you go to another incarnation, bringing this feeling of failure that you need to rebalance, and therefore you keep falling into these cycles of experiencing the incarnations with suffering, right? So I can't validate these type of guidances and these type of coaches, is because I have also an over-attachment to my tool. So when I'm rejecting something, it means that I'm coming from a place of being wounded, and therefore also I have an over-attachment on the opposite, right? Which is then represented by my healing tool. And if I have an over-attachment, it's also because I'm coming from a place of being wounded, which is of this suffering. Because I so don't want to have another incarnation where I'm in the coma, where I don't know what's happening. So I really, really want to make sure that that's why I think I chose this specific healing modality, where you can break down everything, understand the mind, the subconscious mind, and how to break down a limiting belief and the wound attached to it, and how to transmute it, tapping into other timelines, all of that. And it's because I have this belief that I don't want to suffer anymore. I don't want to experience, any incarnations where I am suffering anymore. So obviously that is also coming place of being wounded. It's not aligned, right? And therefore that's why I have an over attachment to my tool, because I'm thinking that is, if I control that, if I work with that, then I'm sure I won't be able to, I won't suffer as much, or I won't suffer at all. So now, obviously, I will have a level of lucidity of on a soul level if I keep working on this incarnation, and that is my aim. And but is to heal this wound and to let go of that limiting belief. So every time I am going through a healing process, I am shedding another layer of that limiting belief, which is that I must suffer to learn, obviously. And I can only, you can't just say, okay, I want to let go of that belief. I tried before, but it didn't work, because it's through the healing of all the limiting beliefs that you have within yourself that you are then letting go of that core mega limiting belief, which is that I must suffer to learn. And so the way is going to be mirrored in my masculine on his healing journey is that right now he's feeling that I received this through a dream a few days ago, and I made a short video about it, is that he's feeling that there is the realization that he's with the wrong person, which is his the comic that we're working with, that he couldn't realize it sooner, right? So that he felt blinded or in the coma, and that he wasn't given all the information, or he was misguided towards to act on this, to be with the comic, to be able to learn then what his real and divine counterpart is, and what is his true path is, right? So it's the same limiting belief of having the attachment to this suffering, because he has the limiting belief within himself that to learn he must suffer. So learning through suffering, right? And I am working obviously with the same limiting belief, but it shows up in a different ways on our individual journey, which is a common journey anyway. So that's the way it's showing up. And so to transmute this limiting belief, that is a very big limiting belief at the core of all the humans that having an experience on this planet, is to let go of the attachment that we have to the pain. I know it sounds weird that we attach to the pain, but we are to the pain of this experience that we've had of not knowing, being in the dark, that we were not given all the tools or all the insight and the knowledge, and to let go of that, understanding that it was part of our human evolution and process, and it was a part of our soul journey that we needed to experience in order to get to where we are at now. So yes, the whole awakening process, all the incarnations before that, or other timelines where we're completely in the coma, represented also in our twin flame journey, which is a concentrated version of all of that, is to now understand and let go of having gone through this suffering and pain. But now, thanks to that, we are able to choose to experience the rest of our incarnation without having to go through all the experiences with the element of suffering. Yes, we'll have challenges and physical and emotional pain, but we are not going to be hanging on to the pain like we used to before, when we were functioning with the limiting belief that to learn we must suffer, right? And so it's to validate this journey and to see the benefit of this journey and to allow it to exist, which is the whole challenge for me in this healing procedure, where why do we have to suffer? So this, and so I come back to where I am, where is reflected in my the way it showed up in my world, is so to validate everything, because these coaches and these guides that I was referring to, where I felt they were not helping, and they were basically a representation of that pain that I felt on my twin flame journey, early stages on my twin flame journey. And so to know that they are valid to exist, because if I invalidate them, I am basically saying you're not allowed to exist, and therefore I am also saying others are allowed to invalidate me, and therefore others are saying you have no right to exist. So the way I am relating to something or someone in the external world, which I don't necessarily prefer, or I don't want to have the experience in my life that I don't choose, but to have this neutral perspective towards it and say, okay, it's not my preference, but it's valid, so it can exist. Therefore, you are also mirroring and sending this energy out. Therefore, this is the energy that you are going to get back. And so others can also will say, okay, I don't necessarily agree with you, but, or I wouldn't have you as a choice in my reality, but you are valid to exist. And so this is what we are learning to understand really and put into practice when you are going through an awakening journey, is to what you put out is what you get back. But it is tricky because we have such a habit to interact with our external world in such a ways where we always have a judgment of value attached to whatever we are interacting with, and especially with things that we have really hard time to relate to, or that we don't really agree with, and we keep having these either negative or positive attachment to it. And so this is the energy, remember, that you are sending out every time you do that. So watch your words and the way you are interacting with anything in your environment, and see the perception or perspective that is either negative or positive attached to that, and to bring it to neutrality every time you can, because this is exactly what you're sending out and that you are going to get back. So and obviously it is integration and putting into practice unconditional love, because unconditional love is not about only things that you like and that you agree with. That would be easy. That's not, and the tricky part is to do it with things that you don't necessarily agree with, that is not your preference, and you choose not to have them in your life, and that is the right thing to do, because it's not your preferences, but is not to have a judgment value attached to that very thing that you don't want in your life, or that is not your preference. and therefore to allow them or it to exist with his own right, without conditions.